Hi everyone. So I've been in the hospital for the last 10 days with a pretty serious condition. Um, I got an infection in my Hickman port, which is also called a central line. It's basically a permanent IV. Um, and I got a particular infection called Staphylococcus aureus that causes blood clots often. So I got blood clots in the line of the port, and then they moved to my heart, and then they moved to my lungs. But that's the most likely situation. I have a blood clot in my heart, which is just the worst feeling. I feel like there's an alien in me, and I just want to get it out. I want an exorcism, but there's a lot of risks to surgery to actually suck them out or pull them out. So I'm taking heparin along with a targeted antibiotic that's like targeted towards this specific strain of bacteria, and I'm going to be on this antibiotic for probably a few months at least, and heparin as well, or some form of blood thinner at home. I think I'm going to be here for another week. This video might be a little sluggish because I'm just out of it. I'm weak and exhausted, and there's nurses coming in here taking blood and stuff every 10 seconds. So it's exhausting, but I'm hopeful that in time I'll get through it, and I'm doing a lot better than I was. It was really bad when I wound up calling 911. I had a fever, and I was slurring my speech, like in a really bad way, and I was delirious, not like heavy brain fog or anything like that. I'm talking like really like delirium, like a reality was bending. And my heart rate was way up, and my breath rate was way up. I was breathing like a hamster. It was really bad. I was just, but things have wound up better than I expected. All the horror stories of ME/CFS patients going to hospitals. I was expecting something god awful, like a big auditorium with curtains dividing patients and just like echoing noise everywhere. But I wound up in this pretty amazing room. They they recently renovated this whole floor in this wing of the hospital, and they made it really patient friendly, and uh, that turns out to mean that it's really ME/CFS friendly. There's no lights beaming down directly on me, and it's all indirect light that's blocked and bounced off the ceiling, and I have a remote that I can use to dim the light with, and it's really well soundproofed. I don't hear hardly any sounds coming in at all, and there's no bright colors in here. And there's one wall. It's just a window. The whole wall is a window, and it's just been amazing. Like right now, the sun is setting, and the whole sky is pink and blue. It's just, and I've been in my room, like I'm lucky to have a garden view in my room, but I never see the sky, and so I've just been like marveling at the sky every day I've been here. But there's two levels of blinds. There's one that just dims the light, and there's one that blocks out the light completely, so you can have it black in here, like a lot of ME/CFS patients need. And I've just been blown away by how well they designed it for an ME/CFS patient, and then, they weren't even trying. And so part of me is like really grateful because I haven't really gotten worse while I've been here, but there's another part of me that's kind of um, just seeing this being a reality makes me kind of angry that it doesn't exist elsewhere, because like if they can do this, if they can make really ME/CFS friendly rooms without even thinking about ME/CFS or likely even knowing about ME/CFS, we could do it all over the world with intention. It's just like it's just kind of a smack in the face seeing it actually exist, by accident. Because we need crisis housing, temporary housing for ME/CFS patients, and we need long-term housing for ME/CFS patients who don't have any place to go, so they don't end up in nursing homes. And we need, we need rooms in hospitals, every hospital in the world that are friendly to ME/CFS and the needs we have. And we need that by law. Another really surprising thing is that the doctors have actually listened to my ME/CFS specialist. They consult with him and talk to him, and they're actually open to like what he says. They're not just blowing it off, and that's been incredible. He for example, I had a CT scan with contrast, and contrast often makes ME/CFS patients worse, but he advised them on a specific steroid to take in a certain way, and they gave me that exact steroid in that exact way and followed his instructions exactly, and I didn't get worse at all. And I was just blown away that they were so open to listening to this ME/CFS specialist in another part of the country. And every single one of the nurses has been open to my ME/CFS needs, which is I just feel incredibly lucky. But then at the same time, there's just like if I can get this, like everybody else needs to get this too, so that it feels like there's something unjust happening here too at the same time, or just it's just kind of a smack in the face of what's possible. But let's see. A big part of me is just feels so crushed that I've got so much worse, and I mean, I'm doing okay, but 3 weeks ago none of these problems existed, and I suddenly have this whole host of new medical issues to deal with on top of the same ME/CFS symptoms and problems that I was dealing with 3 weeks ago. So it's just it feels really heavy. It feels like a big weight on me. But that's ME/CFS. Anybody who's had ME/CFS for any amount of time knows there's ups and downs, and we make improvements, and we fight so hard for those improvements, and then we have setbacks, and something happens, and we get worse, and sometimes we don't even know what made us worse, but we keep going because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know, and we don't know what the future holds, but we know that there's always improvements down the line at some point, and those moments of light and love and laughter and beauty that we experience just make all of the lows and the setbacks worth it, always. So just hang in there, everybody, because you can't see the beauty that's coming around the corner in the future. I'm sending all my love to all of you guys. Hi everyone. So there's a few words I just didn't mention in the video accidentally. I had sepsis, which is important to be clear about. And, I mentioned a lot of the positives of my experience here at Stanford Hospital, but, it's also a big bureaucracy. It's a huge hospital, and not really to their fault necessarily, but, it's designed for 80% or 90% of patients who come through here. And so those other 10% kind of don't fit into the routine. And, that's me. I've had to fight for a lot of little things that I need that don't fit into their system. And I think that's one of the things we need to work on in medicine, making sure those 10% are taken care of. And also, I'm just a guy. I'm just a person with ME/CFS, and I'm suffering just like you are. And I'm trying to be as honest and open about my experience and my whole life, in fact, as I possibly can, because I think that if I'm if I share honestly what I'm going through, other people, other patients can relate to that experience and feel less alone or understand what they're going through better. But I make mistakes, and especially in a video like this, it's I just can't say everything right. So if there's something that I said that doesn't sit right with you, or you have questions about, please read my blog, or listen to the audio version, because I was able to type more precisely. Sending love to you all. Hey everyone, just one more update about the hospital, because I've been home now for 5 weeks, and I just didn't want all of you leaving comments wishing me well at the hospital when I've been home, wasting your energy. I'm really not doing well though. Plot twist, the discharge from the hospital went horribly and kind of went against everything I experienced there. They forced discharged me in the middle of a crash and refused to listen to anything about ME/CFS. I was begging them to let me stay because I physically could not go home right then. But they said they would call security if I didn't leave, and it's just really traumatic. And I got so much worse from it, and it's really sad because I was really hoping that I was going to get better. I was hoping that I discovered some new ability that I didn't have before. Sometimes when you are forced into a new situation, it can go two ways. Rarely you realize you can actually do this new thing, and you hadn't tried it before because you didn't think you could do it, because you crashed every time before. But sometimes you wind up in a new situation. It's like, oh wait, I can actually do this. Look at this, because it's really hard to figure out and know when we improve, like where that line is, and how can we actually, what can we do, how much more can I push myself, or even realize when we get better. It's can I touch the flame now? Is it gonna burn me again? Or it's really hard. But that's literally what it's like. I think people who don't have ME/CFS have no idea how complicated that process is mentally. And you factor in PTSD and everything, and it's just. So I was really hoping that I discovered that I could be around people all the time, because my mother was there, or my cousin or my sister, all the time, and I was talking to them all day, and then they were staying the night most nights. So I was around people all the time, plus nurses coming in. But either because of the way I was discharged in the hospital, or because maybe I was just riding on adrenaline while I was there. I don't know. I've just been really sick since I've been back, and I've had really bad migraine auras where it feels like I don't have a skull anymore. It's just my naked brain, like just sensitive to everything, like the world, like I just have no protective barrier around my brain somehow, if that makes sense. And that alone is pretty disabling. But I've also just been really brain dead and numb in this new way that's like both really low energy and also mentally just really numb, emotionally as well. Just haven't been able to work on anything. I've been just lying here listening to really simple music and kind of just thinking about all the things I want to be doing. I know you can all relate to that. But some good news at the end here. I had to go back to the hospital, which really sucked, because they had to do a repeat exam where they put a device down my throat while I'm unconscious, of course, thank God. And it measures, it looks at my heart from inside the throat. It's called the TEE. And they can just see the heart better from that angle. And the blood clot is completely gone that was in my heart. So, woo, no more alien. But that made me even worse. So that's why you haven't seen much of me. I'm hoping I'll recover and tomorrow will be better. But it's not going very well. But we always hope for a better tomorrow, right? And just mush on. I'll talk to you all soon.